Welcome back to another edition of the Knight Report podcast. I'm your host, Mike Broadbent. Joining me once again is my co-host, Richie O'Leary. We got two more commitments to the class of 2025 for Rutgers Football to discuss. Seems like every pod just leads with two more commitments from the Rutgers Football team for 2025. They're continuing to roll. Two more kids out of state. We'll get into those guys. The basketball team has numbers on their jerseys now, so each player has a number assigned, so we'll get into that. Mm-hmm. And a little bit of some downer news. Rutgers Wrestling has lost its top assistant coach to a head coaching gig elsewhere, so we'll get into that as well. But first, like always, this podcast is presented to you by Night & Day Apparel. Beat the heat this summer with our hot one-of-a-kind products. With temperatures rising, there's no better way to refresh your wardrobe with cool and stylish summer essentials. Whether you're planning a beach getaway, a picnic in the park, or simply lounging in the yard, we've got you covered. Visit their website today and explore a full range of summer essentials from pool floats and spatulas to bathing suits and tank tops. If you use our promo code RutgersRivals, you can get 10% off your purchase. Shop now and keep chopping. I don't know if you saw this, but I think Night & Day confirmed that those pool floats that were at Steve Peichel's house were from Night & Day.
Yes, I believe they did. They tweeted out the video or tweeted out a screenshot or something. So
they tweeted out the screenshot. Yeah, if you want to pull that up too real quick. If you just go to their Twitter.
Where is it? I know I retweeted it somewhere. There it is. Got it. Boom.
Yep. So that was at Peichel's the other day, and those are their pool floats. So I had the eagle eye on that one. Glad I was able to call that out and give a shout out. Got my coffee cup this morning from Night & Day too. So we are pimping our sponsor pretty good today.
Careful with that one.
So let's get into our commitments here. So we got two commitments since the last time we spoke to you guys. The first one came hours after the last pod, so we didn't really have time to put another one up on Father's Day. That one came from a South Carolina DB. His name is Jakarrion Kenan. He just recently transferred from Clinton High School in North Carolina to Marlboro County High School in Bennettsville, South Carolina. He's listed at 6'1", 175 pounds. Tell us a little bit about Jakarrion Kenan.
Yeah, so he is kind of Mr. Do-It-All for his high school team, or I should say his former high school team. He's from Clinton High School in North Carolina, but just transferred recently to Marlboro County High School in Bennettsville, South Carolina. So technically speaking, another state on the checklist for Rutgers for this recruiting cycle, a new state also. But during his time at Clinton, he played just about every role you could as a skilled position guy. Played wide receiver, played cornerback, did a lot of special team stuff. I know just looking through some of his game tape and stuff, he had one game where he had 5 catches for 122 yards, 2 touchdowns. Another game where he had 2 picks. Another game where he had 3 pass deflections. Like he's just kind of does it all. He's a kid that I think they offered just recently actually, and they got him to campus almost immediately after the offer. Some schools were still like keeping a close eye on him. I know Rutgers offered back on May 19th. Actually, it says. But some local schools were pursuing him pretty heavily. I know Manny Diaz over at Duke, new head coach there, was pushing pretty hard. I know Indiana was pushing pretty hard. Cincinnati actually thought they had a pretty good shot at him as well, getting him on campus the week before Rutgers. And end of the day, Rutgers just did a better job recruiting him. They landed him on the visit, and just like most of these official visits, these kids come to campus, and that pretty much seals the deal. Going into the weekend, I know I kind of said they were only going to take one of these 2 cornerback prospects, and then they ended up taking both. It's kind of crazy how big this class is. I didn't think it would get even this far, but it sounds like it's not done yet. But regardless, most of his offers didn't come until like this calendar year. He got just about every offer starting in January. Every one of his 20-something, or not 20-something, every one of his, I think it's like 18-something. But I mean, seems like a really tall, lengthy corner, some good speed to him. Number 11 in the state of South Carolina. This is just an overall solid get for Rutgers. It's what they want at cornerback. They want tall, they want length, and they want speed. He does a little bit of track as well. Track and field, I should say. I think he does the high jump and the hurdles, if I recall correctly. Yes, the 110-meter hurdles, 300-meter hurdles, the high jump, and the triple jump. Just a crazy athlete. just a guy that they can mold into a good DB, they think, and we'll kind of see how it goes.
Yeah, he seems like a bit of a ball hawk too. He had 4 picks last year for his high school team. Like you said, very athletic. You see it on film. He also backs it up with the track times. He's also a special teams ace, it seems. He's blocked a couple punts in his career. So,
Yep.
I mean, those are the kinds of things that like Schiano just salivates for. The guys who are kind of like playing all over the field, the guys who are contributing in all phases of the game. He's also the leading receiver for his high school team last year.
Yep.
Just all around very high level athlete, and fits right in with what Rutgers is looking for at DB: long, tall, fast. You worry about adding bulk because everybody needs to add a little bulk, but I like this pickup. It's commitment number 25 of the class, and 26 we'll discuss in a little bit. Is there anything else about Kenan? I'm sorry, I don't know why I keep want to call him Jakarrion Kenan before we talk about our other commitment.
No, I think it's just a big win for Rutgers. You're not only just beating out like the lower level, like Power 5 schools, you're now beating out, like, don't get me wrong, Duke's not up there really, but they beat out Duke, they beat out Cincinnati, and he was supposed to go to Mississippi State this weekend too, and they beat them out. I know Clemson was kind of keeping a close eye on him as well. They were close to offering, but they didn't. They had him on a camp 3 weeks ago. It's just intriguing for a kid like this to rise so late in the process. His first offer, like I said, didn't come till January 2024, and he now has like 18 offers. So it's a fun recruitment to follow. I think he actually has a high upside. I know the staff's very high on him, and these visits just, you can't rave about them enough. They are just sealing the deal completely for Rutgers, whether it be the New York City, the Jersey Shore, the restaurants, just the bonding as a team. Rutgers is just doing a really good job with these weekend visits, and you really can't give them enough credit there.
Yeah, definitely. And I think a big shout out to the early classes in Greg Schiano's 2.0 era, the class of 2020, which he put together, in a week or two, in the class of 2021. So many of those guys have developed into leaders, and I think have really kind of galvanized the program and really set the foundation of the culture that Schiano wants to instill in the program. You hear, I don't know how many of you guys listen to the Ream and Beam pod, but all the guys they bring on, from the two hosts and Tyrene Powell and Robert Longerbeam to Aaron Lewis. Clearly, he's a goofball, but you can clearly see that he is like all in on the culture. Same thing with Wesley Bailey, Kyle Manungai. Like, all these guys are from those two classes, so they have such strong leadership. And I've seen a lot of commits and a lot of visitors just talk about how special of a place that is at Rutgers. And ultimately, like, a place is special because of the people there. And so I think the players are making a huge impression. The coaches are making a huge impression. And these visits are structured now to really take advantage of New Jersey at its peak in the summer. So I just think it's just like I said, Jedi Master Schiano at work here with how they've been able to structure these summer visits, especially for out-of-staters who might not know much about New Jersey, and they probably are blown away by all the things that are available to them within an hour or two of Rutgers campus.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the second commitment of the last 48 hours in Canaan Edwards of Georgia. He is a defensive end. He is fairly new to football. He's listed, I believe, at 6'5", 230 pounds. Tell us a little bit about Canaan Edwards.
Yeah, he's another kid that actually just transferred high schools this offseason. He was at Archer High School in Georgia, now at Langston Hughes High School. Julian Campenny got in on the ground floor with him, I want to say 3 months ago. I think it was back in March. And Rutgers was his only Power 4 offer at the time, and I think they still are, actually. UCF Power? Yeah, they're Power 4 now, right? So UCF's the only other Power 4.
Yep.
Conference realignment. It's screwing with my head. But another kid came to campus this weekend for the first time, and just that was it. Sealed the deal. We talked about this recently. Canaan Edwards is a guy that has only been playing football for a year. His first official game ever, he was player of the game in the Georgia, I forget what it is, Kickoff Classic or something like that. I know there's a name behind it, and I just can't remember it. But yeah, Julian Campenny has some really good connections down in Georgia, and that's kind of where you're seeing most of these defensive ends from Georgia come into play. We know Chase Linton, We know they're also hitting up Florida. They're hitting up the South for defensive ends. And I honestly, whenever you see a Georgia kid at the end of the day, it's essentially a Florida kid because they produce just as much talent in Georgia as they do in Florida. This just seems like a really good get. He's fast off the ball. He's quick off the snap, I should say. He's getting to the quarterback. He's not afraid of contact. He needs to learn technique a little bit, but I mean, you could say that for a lot of guys, but the athleticism's there, the size is there. Hoops player all his life. Actually played in the Georgia Tip-Off Classic a couple years ago. If some of you might remember it, if you follow hoops recruiting too, because Ace Bailey and AOT played in the Tip-Off Classic, and that's the game where Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey teamed up.
That's right.
Yeah, it's he's just a hoops player his whole life, and then all of a sudden just switched to football, gave it a try, and they're like, holy shit, this kid's pretty fucking good. So I know people have compared him to Kamoko too, Ray, just because he's new to football, and I think you could do that from a skills perspective, where he still has to learn a lot, but he has a really good knack for getting to the quarterback, but he's got a lot more size than Kamoko. Kamoko, you got to remember, came in like, I don't even know his exact weight, but he had to be like 180, 190 pounds, like soaking wet. Like he was just like skinny. This kid at least has some good weight to him, good size to him. You can kind of build on his frame already. He has a solid frame actually already, but at a legit 6'5", 230, 225-ish. But yeah, no, this is another good get for Rutgers. This is a sneaky good one too, because I feel like a lot of schools in that region, whether it be Georgia Tech, I don't even know who else is down there, to be honest. Even the Carolinas, like I feel like you could have snuck this guy on campus and no one would have known about him, and he'd probably be in the portal in 2 years if you were at like Duke. But now he's at Rutgers and he'll be on the team for 4 years.
Yeah, I really like this pickup. You know, a guy that clearly is going to need at least 2 years to develop in the weight room and also as a player, because like you said, he's been only playing since 9 months ago. This is his first football game.
Yep.
And last year he played in 10 games, 40 tackles, 7 TFLs, 3 sacks. Might not jump off the page, but again, he displays a lot of flashes on film, and he's clearly got supreme athleticism as well, which we've said time and time again. Every guy that they're landing seemingly has elite athleticism or near elite athleticism, which is kind of what you need in the Big Ten.
Yep.
There's another connection here between his trainer, I believe, as well. His trainer is named Julius Williams, who played in the NFL, the Arena Football League, and the Canadian Football League. They have a lineman training group called the Trench Mob. Tell us about the connections between Julius Williams and some Rutgers staffers.
So Julius Williams played at UConn, so he played against a couple Rutgers guys for a couple years. Specifically,
that are currently on staff.
Yeah, like Jamal Westerman played against him. They both actually played in the CFL as well. They never connected in the CFL on the same team, but they played against each other in the CFL, played against each other in college. So there's a little bit of a connection there. The bigger connection would be Julius Williams played 2 years with the Edmonton Eskimos with Damaso Munoz, who is, I believe he's now listed as a special teams analyst. I think he came in as a defensive backs analyst or something. I forget what it was, but he's at special teams now. But Damaso Munoz is on staff, and he played 2 years with this guy in Edmonton. So there's a little bit of a connection there. So I think they're kind of just not only trusting their evaluations on film, but also having connections to these guys, whether it be Campenny's connections to Georgia, Munoz connections to the trainer. You kind of have to go based off coach speak a little bit, and you have to go based off guys you trust. Like I know, for example, if I'm trying to think, like one of the staff members would talk to like a quarterback guru from around the region, you got to trust that guy because like he knows what he's talking about. And you just build relationships with those trainers, and they kind of also help put you on to like some kids you never knew about. And this could be a perfect example of that.
Yeah, no, that's honestly, that's what half the battle is in recruiting, is building good relationships, because it could yield nothing. It could just be a guy that you wish happy birthday to, or like console when there's things in their life that that went awry. Yeah. But the ones that fortuitously, your former teammate with the Jets ends up as a top trainer in North Jersey, and now he's telling you about all these kids when they're 14 rather than finding out about them when they're, top recruits already. So just like having as many connections and being a personable guy helps and goes a long way in recruiting, and you can't really get far without it. So it sounds like an example of that. I kind of wanted to talk a bit about the interesting dynamic here with a lot of these recruits from out of state. I would imagine, and I might be wrong, but I imagine that a lot of these, scouting journeys for the staff, it's mostly tape based, it seems, because a lot of these guys, like, you didn't hear a ton about coaches, being out and about in Georgia for, if you go down to Georgia, it was typically to like see a commit, or if you went down to North Carolina, it was typically to see a commit. It's really tough to just like scout for a weekend during the season for these Rutgers coaches. And it's not like a lot of these guys are camping at Rutgers. So do you think a lot of their evaluations are based on relationships and tape watching at this point when you're going after guys in Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida, et cetera?
Yeah, 100%. I know Greg has some really. I mean, I don't even have to tell you guys this, honestly. Like, Greg coached down in Tampa for a couple years with the NFL program and also with the high school program. So they have strong ties throughout the entire area of Florida. You notice they kind of lean more towards the Jacksonville region because that's where most of their ties are. But yeah, you have to just trust your guys sometimes, and trust like some other people, trust the trainers, trust this. And then like when you can probably get them on campus, get them to do a workout or two. That's the big thing. Like I know last year Carter Cadeau came to campus after being a teammate of Sam Piloff, and he wanted to try out for he was a tight end his whole life, wanted to try out for offensive tackle. Flats tried him out, and that's like one of those in-person ones. So that's one situation, but it's almost rare now for that to happen because they're, like you said, they're going down to Georgia and Florida, and most of these kids have never touched foot on campus. And now they're just going based on the film, go based off what the trainers say. And that's kind of where the offer stems from, and you start from there, and then you kind of break down the tape more and more, whether it be like, for example, this one, Julian Campenny, but really wanted this kid. I didn't think they were going to take 5 defensive ends, but they did. You can argue, so like Gurman might not be a defensive end. He might be a future tackle on the offensive side or even the defensive side. You can argue some of these other guys might move around too, but this is a guy they really wanted. They break down the film together. He'll break it down with Harris Simiak, and Harris Simiak's like, okay, I kind of like his traits, so blah, blah, blah. Like, I think we can make this work. And it's like, all right, let's bring this to Greg. You bring it to Greg, and then Greg makes the final decision. All right, we're going to take the kid. Let's get him to campus. Let's see what if we can land him. Gets to campus, takes the visit, loves it, blah, blah, blah. Done deal. But yeah, it is a lot of film-based analysis over the past couple of recruits specifically, just because they've never been to campus before. But you can also go word of mouth from other coaches. Like some of these coaches will talk to like say this is not fact by any means. Just like say hypothetically, Rutgers will be like, hey, like they know a guy on Georgia Tech staff, and like, yo, what's the scoop with him? Like you guys haven't offered, no one else has offered. Like they'd help each other out more than you think. And everyone like on the lower levels, not just like the assistant coaches, like the analysts are always trying to move up. So some of these analysts at other schools will always be like, yo, hey, Greg, you got to check this kid out. Like, oh my God, he's so good. Like, he's awesome. They'll be like, oh, thanks, man. Like, why hasn't Georgia Tech offering? He goes, I showed the coach and he didn't listen to me. So screw him. And then all of a sudden this guy is either not on staff at Georgia Tech anymore, or he's on Rutgers staff next year. And that's just kind of how it works. Some of these like lower level analysts and, recruiting guys are always trying to move up. That's why you always see so much movement with them, because either they got caught feeding info to someone else, or they are just doing good at their job, so they just keep moving up. But yeah, there's a lot to it.
Yeah, it's interesting, and again, a relationship business because if you give them their first really big shot, whether it be a positional coach thing, there's typically some loyalty there, but you're not going to stay loyal if you're getting an offer for like a coordinator job or something like that. But it does help.
No.
I want to transition to hoops now. So yesterday it was announced all of the numbers for the 24-25 basketball roster.
Somewhere.
Kind of a silly thing, but I just kind of want to go through all the numbers of the hoop squad, if you'll all indulge us. So Jordan Durkak, who was trained, I believe, by Geo Baker, takes his mentor's number in number 0. You have Jamichael Davis keeping his number 1. Dylan Harper, no surprise, is number 2.
Mm-hmm.
Ace Bailey, also no surprise, number 4.
Yep.
Darius Acuff, also no surprise, number 5. I believe that was his number last year.
Tyson Acuff.
Acuff, yes. Sorry, I was getting those mixed up.
Yeah. It would be nice if it was Darius Acuff.
It would. Bryce Dortch is number 8. Dylan Grant's
one.
number 9. Emmanuel Ogbol sticks with 21.
Yeah.
PGA Hayes goes with his Idols number in 23.
Mm-hmm.
Lathan Somerville goes with number 24. Jeremiah Williams sticks with his number at 25. And then the surprise of the bunch, Zach Martini goes with the biggest number that he could fit on a jersey, number 99. So those are the hoops numbers. If you're trying to get some, offshore Chinese, basketball jersey made, those are the Rutgers basketball numbers.
DHgate.com. It's pretty good. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
I don't suggest the red because the red comes out a little bit like pinkish, almost like that salmon uniform they used to have for football. So just be careful with that. I always suggest getting the white ones, but they have the script letters on the DHgate, just saying.
Interesting.
So,
I want to close out here with some wrestling news that we kind of alluded to. Longtime assistant Donny Pritzlaff has taken the head coaching job at Columbia, which is a bit of a surprise because a few years ago he was the number one candidate for the Maryland job. And I know Maryland is in the Big Ten, but it's by far the worst program in the Big Ten. He ended up turning that job down, and it kind of just felt like he was the head coach in waiting here at Rutgers. If you look at the salary that was posted for the Columbia job, it's for less money than he's currently making as an assistant at Rutgers. This is a big time loss. Donny Pritzlaff was one of the top assistant coaches in all of college wrestling. Tell us a little bit about, how big of a loss this is for Rutgers wrestling.
I mean, he's responsible for a lot of development of these guys. Like even like when watching like the NCAA tournament or the Big Ten tournament, like some of these coaches like split up because there's so many matches going on at once. And you could always trust Donny to just do whatever he needed to do. You could trust Donny one-on-one with any wrestler, to be honest. He's built such great relationships with these guys. He played a role in recruiting. Now, most of this 2024 class, I know some people have speculated that they're going to lose some people. I don't think that's going to happen. Number one, it's Columbia. It's not easy to get into for starters. Number two, most of these guys were recruited by Steve Mitch. Mitch. I don't know how to pronounce it, to be honest. So apologies there. But I think they'll be fine on the recruiting trail. I think development might take a bit of a hit. It's going to be tough to replace him. Now, from what I was told, it sounds like the easy switch here would just be to promote. Now, he was associate head coach, to promote one of Pollard or Mitch to associate head coach. Other guy's going to stay on staff as assistant coach. And the early name we're hearing to fill that void would be Sebastian Rivera. So Seabass, but he's also training for the Olympics, I believe, or in the Olympics with Puerto Rico, I believe. I think it was.
Yeah, he's going to be on the Puerto Rico squad. Interesting.
Yeah, that's what I was just told via text message.
I guess that doesn't surprise me, given it seems like Goody has obviously developed a very close relationship with Sebastian Rivera. But I assume just from not knowing anything that they would try and get, some kind of established top assistant. But if, I'll trust Goody. He's developed a pretty amazing program with Rutgers wrestling. So if he thinks Seabass is ready for the role, then he's got my trust. So,
I mean, 3-time team Puerto Rico national team, Pan American silver, Pan American bronze, 5-time All-American, Big Ten champ, 5-10 Big Ten placer. It makes sense, I guess. Like you said, I thought they would actually go for like a huge name and try to like make a big splash here. But I don't really know who would be interested, number one, and like what's the pay like? Is it like comparable to other schools? Is it more than other schools? And then it's just I don't know. I thought they would have got someone with a little more experience, but it sounds like Seabass is the favorite as of right now. Now that's early favorites. This has happened before where we've seen early favorites to replace someone in football or basketball. Hell, we didn't even have Marlon Williamson on our list, and then all of a sudden he came out of nowhere. So you never know, but that is the name to keep an eye on, I'm told, right now. He's also one of 2 of the resident athletes at the SKWC, so I guess you could kind of shift his money for a resident athlete to someone else for a new resident athlete. So something to keep an eye on.
Interesting. Yeah. He's obviously qualified for the Olympics, so it'll be interesting to see how he does and see how things kind of progress or change with the resident athlete at the Rutgers Wrestling Club. That's kind of all I got today. Is there anything else you wanted to hit on before we head out, Rich?
Not really. No, you know what? I take it back. There's something I want to hit on. I was talking, someone actually asked if we could hit on this, going forward. They want to talk about more on future schedules for Rutgers football, because there's really not much going on for future schedule. Like next year, there's only one out of conference game, and it's Ohio. After that, there's 2 out of conference games, UMass Boston College and then Akron Boston College in 2027. So they're still missing a lot of games, and you're starting to see some schools start to announce stuff. I know Ohio State just bailed on UConn for an out-of-conference game next season, and they had to pay a $650,000 buyout, which I don't understand the reasoning behind that, because they replaced them with Bowling Green, and it's like Ohio State's here to UConn, maybe? Not really, but
yeah, I can't really explain that one. They're both
it's a lot of
pretty
money
bad.
just to throw away, basically. So if you're ever wondering how UConn has a football program still, you can shout out Ohio State for that one.
The Big Ten announced the 24 to 28 football schedules as well all at once too. So at least we have that knowledge too.
Mm-hmm. Like next year's schedule could be, I know Ohio State's on there and Penn State's on there, but they're Oregon. It's not insanely hard. I feel like they have a good shot still. Like they'll make a bowl.
Yeah. So if we just want to kind of high level go over the 25 schedule, so Big Ten games, we got home Penn State, home Oregon, home Maryland, home Iowa, road Washington, road Purdue, road Ohio State, road Minnesota, and road Illinois.
Yeah.
Then out of conference, we've got Ohio,
That's
like
it.
you said, and there's 2 openings. So I'd imagine FCS for one of them, probably some low-level FBS, given Shiano's history with this kind of stuff. He does not want to. With that schedule, it's so tough that it's not really worthwhile to have another Power 4 program on that schedule, and especially given that Rutgers needs 3 home games next year in 25, because they have 4 Big Ten road games or 4 Big Ten home games. So you're going to have to essentially schedule, some G5 school, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I say keep it local. Go with like a Delaware or like a Temple.
Yeah.
Delaware's FBS now too, so it's not like as meh of a game as it used to be. Now they're still going to have to build to get to that level. I don't think they're going to pull like a James Madison out of nowhere and be like, oh, what the fuck? Like they're undefeated. But yeah, that's going to be interesting. I'm intrigued also to see. I did want to note this: if the Big Ten Conference is going to sell themselves to the devil and throw a logo on it, are they going to change? Like the All-State 12 is coming. The Conference USA, I forget what it is coming.
Yeah, it'll be fun. You kind of had to make those announcements at the same time. The new news of conferences basically becoming corporate sponsored in their names. They had to kind of do that in lockstep, because if it was just one, it would look pretty bad. But we'll see. Things are changing. That's the one constant in life, and it is certainly true in college sports.
So.
But we could do a deep dive on that on a later podcast in the summer.
Of course.
I had one thing. It was a lot of fun last night on Danny Breslauer's Spaces for anybody who listened and watched, or whatever you call that, on Twitter. I try and make them known when they're happening. There should be another one in the summer, but definitely a must listen. Danny was telling me he had a massive Google Doc prepared. I guess he's got to put his broadcasting preparation somewhere, given that he doesn't do the podcast anymore. But that was a lot of fun. Definitely join if you haven't in the past. For next time, he's probably one of the most knowledgeable Rutgers basketball fans out there. So
for sure,
that's all I got. I want to thank everybody for listening once again. This has been another edition of the Night Report podcast. Signing off.